Welcome, travelers, to the uneasy silence between shadows, the spectral margins. Tonight, the air is thick with mischief, bloodlust, and betrayal. What you're about to hear is unlike anything we've ever dared to deliver from these haunted halls. It is a tale of obsession and indulgence, of two twisted souls who find each other across a digital chasm, their blood-soaked chemistry igniting in the worst, or perhaps the best way imaginable. The story is called Mac and Millie, a twisted tale of fate, admiration, shock, and terror by Bridgett Nelson and Jeff Strand, performed by Victoria and Lucius Voss. This is a sneak peek at her new collection, Embracing the Profane. And listeners, this one doesn't whisper from the edge of darkness, it screams from the abyss. But let me offer you this fair warning. This tale isn't for the faint of heart. It marks a crossing, a threshold, the birth of something new and far more feral. So, now, dear listeners, steel yourself and join us in welcoming the newest descent into depravity from the Sinister Somnolence Network. Our extreme horror sister series, Beyond the Margins. There, we shed our inhibitions like flayed skin. We go further, we dig deeper, and this story, Mac and Millie, will be its gruesome inaugural episode. If you think you're ready, step across the line. But once you do, there's no going back. Because on the other side, the monsters aren't just real. Could they be in love? And now, I present to you a taste of what lies beyond. Mac. I'd looked at a shocking number of dicks for a guy who was almost entirely heterosexual. I mean, pictures, of course. I didn't have men lined up in my apartment. What I needed was the perfect dick pic for the dating site I was using. It had to be large, but not so large a potential recipient would say, "Oh no, goodness no, I could never accommodate that." As straight as possible, no weird curves, circumcised, obviously. Finally, I found it. Yes, this would be the penis I presented to the ladies on the site. And then I realized I was going about it all wrong. I might as well come out and say it. I was using the site to find a murder victim. My brain is a little mixed up, and I have this uncontrollable desire to take human lives. Okay, female lives. I swear I'm not a misogynist. Don't read anything into the fact that all my previous 8 victims were women. I don't hate women. I love women. Women are awesome. I don't know. Maybe I was worried that a guy would kick my ass. Anyway, after completing a 7-hour search for the perfect online phallus, it occurred to me that any healthy straight woman with a working libido would want this dick. And my preference was to kill a filthy disease-ridden whore Really, I needed to send a picture of an unappealing dick. Something tiny and weird-shaped and gross, so that any woman who wanted to meet up with me after seeing it would be deserving of her fate. I took a picture of my own dick. Started sending it to various ladies in the area. Most of them ignored me. It didn't hurt my feelings. I was used to being rejected, which is why I'd grown to hate women. No, I don't mean that. Ignore that. That's not what I meant. I've already explained that women are great. They give birth. I like to stab people. It's not my fault. God gave me a brain that wants to stab people, and are you going to tell him that he messed up? Yes, the people I stab are women. Wouldn't it be more sexist to not stab women? Like, oh no, I could never harm that helpless, delicate flower. No, I kill women because I believe that they should be able to take care of themselves. I don't need to justify it to you. How do I know you don't stab women, huh? And when you're done stabbing them, you, I don't know, pee on them or something. I feel I'm getting sidetracked. What I'm saying is, I sent dick pics to every wretched slut on the site. The ones who responded were generally unkind. The plan wasn't working. I'd have to go back to my technique of killing extremely affordable prostitutes. But then I got a reply.
You're fucking hot. Let's do this. Millie. I sent the message, then leaned back against my chair, still staring at the repulsive dick pic. I was mesmerized. How in the hell did such a small dick bend that way? And was that a wart? Jesus. A guy sending images of that monstrosity out into the world deserved to die. I'd be doing the world a favor causing that thing to rot, although I'm pretty sure it was already halfway there. Was there a cock-rotting disease? I typed cock-rotting disease into Google and found photos of infected dicks, the occasional pus-filled anus, and an oozing perineum or two. The series of symptoms was named after the French physician Fournier, who first discovered them. Poor guy, his name forever associated with decaying taints. But no, that's not what my presumed future date Mac had. His was just small, discolored, deformed, and oddly lumpy. If he thought I was touching that thing, except maybe to cut it off during his savage torture, he was sadly mistaken. And even then, I'd wear thick gloves. Because, ew. I may be a ruthless serial killer, but I was still a girl, and I had fucking standards. Unwilling to look at Mac's junk for even one more second, I closed the photo and noticed he'd replied.
Hello, Millie. You're also super attractive. Cool. Let's be intimate and stuff. Saturday at 8? Lots of love, Mac.
For fuck's sake, was he 10? Letting out a sigh and cursing the shit I had to do just to kill innocent people, I wrote back, "Send a pic of your face. I need to know who I'll be fucking." I took my bulldog puppy, Manslaughter, out to pee. He snorted and sniffed and ran a few zoomies around the backyard before finally finding the perfect spot to do his business. When I came back inside, there was another message from Mac. The subject line simply read, "Me." I opened the attached photo and was pleasantly surprised. Yes, his male appendage clearly came from the deep bowels of hell, but he had a nice face, kind eyes, a sweet smile. Poor guy had no idea what he was in for. I couldn't wait to cut him. I wrote back, "Saturday at 8 works. My place?" Assuming he'd agree, I sent him the address. Now to prepare.
She was making it easy. Almost too easy. Nah, it wasn't a suspicious amount of easy. In today's slut-ridden society, women wanted penis so badly they'd put their own personal safety at risk. I assumed we'd have to meet in a public place first. I obviously couldn't stab her in the middle of a Cheddar's Scratch kitchen, so it was always a pain when my victims wanted to meet somewhere with good lighting and other people around, especially because they didn't always recognize my natural charm. The truth is that some women get a skeevy vibe from me. It pisses me off. I bathe. I groom. What the hell is their problem? It makes me want to wrap my hands around their neck and squeeze until their eyeballs pop out. Sorry about that. I promise I'm not an angry person. Also, no matter how hard you squeeze somebody's neck, their eyeballs don't pop out. I've tried. Anyway, when she'd sent her address a few days ago, I'd looked it up and rejoiced. Not only was it a house and not an apartment, but she lived in the middle of nowhere. No neighbors visible on Google Maps? Foolish girl. Didn't she realize how easy it would be to kill somebody in that environment? Poor Millie. Tonight, she would writhe in helpless torment as I stabbed her again and again and again and again, laughing at her inept attempts to escape. Just to be clear, the fact that I would be treating Millie as an amalgam of all the women who rejected me does not mean I hate women. Some women are fine. Not my mom, but waitresses, for example. I always tip them at least 10%. I'd much rather have a woman be my server than a man. So let's keep the Maxa male chauvinistic pig talk to a minimum, okay? I put on a clean t-shirt, combed my hair to hide the bald spot, washed my mustache, and put a switchblade knife in my pocket. Some killers, depraved freaks that they are, have a special weapon they use to claim their victims. Sometimes they even name it. Not me. I've got like 9 or 10 switchblades, and I didn't even think about which one I shoved into my pocket. My knife is not an extension of my penis. I drove to her house. I had to go down a long, winding dirt driveway to get there, which was surrounded by trees. Seriously? Didn't she realize how much danger she was in? She could scream at the top of her lungs and nobody would hear. Hell, I could bury her corpse in these woods and it would never be found. What a dumb bitch. I parked, checked my mustache in the rearview mirror, then got out of the car. Stifling a giggle, I walked to her front door and knocked.
Millie. Smirking, I watched from my bedroom window as the balding fool walked toward my front door. He'd looked way better in his photo, which I'm guessing was at least a decade old. These days, Mac was sporting a crusty mustache, a dad bod, and a comb-over. Just why? Didn't guys realize comb-overs were the leading cause of Sahara-like vaginas? He was wearing a white t-shirt with yellow stains near the armpits. He paired the classy shirt with some jeans and penny loafers. Dear God, if ever a man needed to be put down, it was this one. Choking back laughter at how easy he'd made this for me, I checked my reflection in the floor-length mirror. Long red hair and a sleek ponytail? Check. Push-up bra in full effect? Check. Glossy lips? Check. I was dressed to kill, and I planned to. To him, I was just a girl looking to get laid, innocent in my naivety for inviting him into my isolated home. probably thinking he could fuck me 6 ways from Sunday because there were no neighbors around to hear me scream. As if I'd let his diseased organ anywhere near me. As if he'd ever have the upper hand. As if. The doorbell rang. Spritzing a bit of perfume on my neck, I made my way downstairs. No weapons were concealed beneath my clothes. They were all in the bedside drawer. Most women kept vibrators, dildos, condoms, and lube there. I kept an ice pick, a butcher knife, a meat cleaver, the sharpest scissors I could find, a meat mallet, a taser gun, and even some aerosol spray and a lighter. I loved torture, but not as much as the moment my victim's eyes went sightless in death. It was better than sex. Putting on my innocent game face, I pulled open the door. Mac, hey! Nice to see you. Please come in. He gave me a clownish smile and walked into my lair. Something green was stuck between his teeth. His eyes glimmered in the dim light of my home, one lonely lamp lighting the entirety of the downstairs. I could tell he liked what he saw. Why wouldn't he? I looked way fucking better than he did. Smelled better, too. Was that refried beans? He leaned in for a hug, and I got the full-on Taco Bell experience. I wasn't convinced he'd recently eaten refried beans. It may very well have been his natural odor.
Hi, Millie. Nice to meet you. If you don't mind me saying so, you sure are pretty.
I walked to the couch and spread out a blanket. I didn't want his aromatic ass anywhere near my velvet sofa. Thanks. Please have a seat. I motioned to the newly covered couch. Would you like a drink? A scotch, maybe?
No alcohol, please. It makes me feel funny.
How about a Shirley Temple? If he said yes, I might not be able to withstand the urge to kill him right where he stood.
A Shirley Temple would be grand.
A round of Shirley Temples coming right up, I said, trying hard to control the urge to kick him in the balls.
Great, thanks.
He looked relieved.
There's nothing wrong with a drink like that, right?
Nothing at all. Lots of grown men impress their dates by asking for a Shirley Temple. Mac frowned.
Are you being sarcastic?
Not at all. That would be impolite. I walked into the kitchen. Mac sure as hell didn't have much going for him. Carrying the drinks back into the living room, I handed him one and sat on the far end of the couch, as far away from him as I could get. The guacamole and sour cream stench rolling off him in waves was getting to me. Manslaughter, my bulldog, strutted into the room, muscular legs bowed, panting heavily. He stood before Mac, sniffing him intently, probably enticed by my date's cologne. Mexican fiesta. Mac's nervousness was apparent. Mac, meet my pooch. Manslaughter wrapped his paws around Mac's calves and humped. The snorting intensified. Mac, trying to politely shake the dog off his leg, said,
Wow, your dog's a bit of a man whore, isn't he?
He giggled timidly. Sorry about that. He's a pup and still a little rambunctious. I pulled Manslaughter off his leg, noticing the resulting white patch on his jeans, and lured the doggy into the guest bedroom with treats. After I got him settled, I ventured back to the living room. Mac was sour-faced as he wiped at the wet spot on his jeans with a handkerchief. He carries a handkerchief? When he saw me, the pissy look was immediately replaced by an easygoing smile, but it was clear he wasn't as amused by Manslaughter's antics as he'd pretended to be. Choosing to change the subject, I said, So, Mac, what do you do for a living?
I'm a computer repairman.
Well, that tracked. I bet he liked D&D too, and had Bigfoot posters hanging on his wall. Nice. What do you do in your spare time?
Every Saturday night, I play D&D with my friends, and I love horror movies and books.
Horror is my favorite.
Mine too.
Favorite monster? I asked.
I love cryptids. Probably Mothman.
Not Bigfoot, but close enough. He looked at me shyly and grinned, the green thing stuck between his teeth highlighted in the soft lamplight.
What about you? Do you have a favorite monster?
I took a long drink from my Shirley Temple. I was fervently wishing I'd loaded it with alcohol. This was painful. I'm partial to human monsters. They're the scariest of all. His shy smile turned into a full-blown grin.
Damn right they are.
He scooted closer to me. I had him, hook, line, and sinker, and he really needed to die. I sat my drink down and asked, "Interested in joining me in the bedroom?"
See, this is why Millie needed to die. Her and her perverted dog. What's wrong with a bit of courtship, talking, getting to know each other, making a personal connection before inviting me into the bedroom where dozens, if not hundreds, of other men had vigorously fornicated with her? I bet she even asked them for cunnilingus. Demanded it, more likely. Those poor men, choking back bile and holding their noses. Would it have killed her to chat for 15 or 20 minutes before we started removing clothing? No. What would kill her was her haste. I mean, yes, I would have killed her even if she'd wanted to talk first, but my point is that women, in general, are vile, carnal creatures who deserve to be extinguished from existence. I am, I said. I'm very interested. Your bedroom sounds like a happy place. Millie smiled. For a split second, I wondered if her smile was sincere, but then I decided it totally was and followed her into her bedroom. She'd chosen a strange decor. Plastic wrap all over the walls and floor. Probably her idea of feng shui or whatever crap women thought about when they decorated. She had no idea she'd made my cleanup process easier. I reached into my pocket as though retrieving a condom. Most likely the disease-ridden tramp would tell me no condom was necessary. She'd probably already acquired all the STDs she could get. I pulled out the switchblade. Millie's smile disappeared. I pressed the button and the blade snapped out.
"What the fuck?"
she asked. Oh, I'd show her what the fuck. I had, in the past, tried out various ways to inform my victims they were going to die, but quite honestly, I wasn't good at remembering what I'd written, and it was easier just to get right to the stabbing. I thrust the knife at her, plunging it deep into her yielding flesh. No. Wait. Shit! I'd missed! She grabbed a pillow off the bed and swung it. It was a firm pillow, and the swing was surprisingly hefty from such a helpless female. As it struck my hand, the knife went flying toward the wall. I ran for my weapon. Picking it up, I spun around and watched her opening a drawer. She probably thought she could subdue me by squirting lube into my eye. She turned, brandishing a butcher knife. I didn't want to know what kind of kinky sex acts required her to keep a butcher knife in her bedside drawer. My God, she was depraved. "If you put the knife down, I'll leave you unharmed," I said. I was lying. Millie shook her head and beckoned me forward, ready to fight.
"Bring it." What was this? The nerdy little twerp thought he could take me on? Was he completely brain dead? This was not how I'd planned for the evening to go. It would probably require working up a light sweat, which was bullshit. Dude was supposed to come to my house, be seduced by my many, many charms, allow himself to be tortured and mutilated, then go willingly to his basement death. Instead, he had a puny little switchblade, no doubt an extension of his penis, and I had to deal with his hyper-masculine bravado. Ugh, fuck my life. I watched him brandishing his dipshit knife and realized I'd chosen the wrong weapon. I wasn't going to be like Mac with his stainless steel schlong. Once again, I strolled sedately to my nightstand and pulled open the drawer. Replacing the butcher knife in its case, I rifled through the rest of the contents until I wrapped my palm around the handle of the ice pick. It felt good. It felt right. I straightened, intuitively knowing he didn't have the fortitude or the balls to attack a woman from behind. As I pricked the tip of my finger to check the piercing sharpness of my chosen weapon, I saw Mac dancing around like a boxer, wielding his metal penis. Tinkling laughter filled the room. "You amuse me, little man," I said softly.
What's that supposed to mean? Little?
He huffed. "I think you know." I turned, stared at his stupid face longer than intended. I felt my brain go stupider during the brief interlude. Jumped on the bed and charged. As I leapt off the mattress, I plunged the ice pick into his flabby body. He managed to sidestep my attack, and the weapon harmlessly penetrated the fleshy part of his underarm. He let out a pained cry and whipped his knife across my abdomen, superficially cutting my skin. Whatever. Skin would heal, but the son of a bitch ruined my black mini dress. Pissed beyond belief that my brand new, very expensive dress was bound for the garbage pile, I let out a fierce roar. He blinked in thunderstruck surprise. I paused our fight, because I had to know. "You've never heard a woman roar before?"
No.
"Okay." I charged him. To give credit where it's due, he stood his ground. He dodged my ice pick attack and slashed my arm wrist to elbow. "Fuck!" I shouted. It stung like hell, but he'd impressed me. I couldn't help but admire his skills. Any other guy would have had an ice pick protruding from his forehead following the sheer awesomeness of my athletic prowess. Mac grinned, then punched me in the stomach. I doubled over, stood back up, and punched him in the jaw as hard as I could. He stumbled backward, collided with my bed, then stumbled forward, again, right into my swinging fist. His eyes crossed. Looking dizzy, he turned around and spat some blood onto my expensive velvet duvet. Thoroughly annoyed that he was determined to ruin everything I owned, I stabbed my ice pick into his less than spectacular buttock. He groaned, gyrated, and performed a rather impressive, yet baffling, version of the moonwalk. Then he ran into my bathroom, slammed the door, and flipped the lock. I pounded on the heavy wood. "Open up, you chicken shit!" No response. "Mac, god damn it, I have a key. Keep your dignity, man. Open the fucking door." I heard the squeak of the cabinet doors opening and closing. Then,
Millie? Do you have hydrogen peroxide and bandages? I don't want these puncture wounds to get infected.
I stood there, mouth gaping. He'd stopped trying to kill me so he could disinfect his wounds? "What the fuck?" I blurted, a little too loudly.
Do you know what happens to an infected buttock? It may sound funny, but I assure you, it's not.
He said, his voice indignant. Deciding to play it cool because what else could I do? I said, "Yeah, they're in the cabinet above the toilet."
Cool, thanks.
"Mac, why did you dance after I stabbed you?"
To distract you so I could get away.
I nodded. "That's fair. Good job."
I've been doing this for a long time.
"Really?" He'd once again shocked me into silence. "You're a killer?"
Yeah, serial. Are you? Most ladies I know don't have ice picks in their nightstand, or their boudoir covered in plastic sheeting.
"Why don't you open the door and we'll discuss this like the psychotic adults we are?" I heard him hiss in pain and assumed he was using the peroxide.
Okay, give me a minute.
More hissing and a whispered,
"Ah, ow, ow, ow."
I walked to the bed and sat down. Several minutes later, Mac poked his head out. He looked at me. I looked at him. Yeah, he was a total buffoon, but... "Maybe we should work together," I heard myself say.
Is that a joke? I asked.
No.
Millie said. Is it a trap?
No.
I opened the door all the way. Millie stood there, letting the blood run down her arm. It was surprisingly sexy. Then what exactly do you mean? She shrugged. It was a surprisingly sexy shrug. Maybe I just found her sexy overall. I mean, she looked less like an oozing scab-covered whore than I anticipated.
You have a desire to kill,
Millie said.
I have a desire to kill. It would be nice to team up and commit murder with someone who understands. I don't know about you, but since I'm trying not to get caught, I can't really chat with anyone about it afterward.
I thought about her words. It would be nice to have a friend who could relate to the darkness in my heart. We could slaughter a victim, then spoon in bed while we reminisced. We couldn't fuck on top of the corpse afterward, I said.
I would never ask you to do that.
I'm serious. It's a deal breaker.
I completely get it.
And, the victim has to be female.
Why? You hate women?
Yes, I mean, no. Women are awesome. They make the world go round. It's just my modus operandi. And what kind of serial killer would I be if I veered from my modus operandi? I'm not an incel or anything like that. I just don't want to kill a dude.
That's fine,
said Millie.
I'll kill anything. I'm basically pansexual with murder. Also, I'm pansexual.
Good to know, I lied.
Did you have a backup victim for tonight?
No, I admitted. I sent my dick pic all over town, but you were the only one who showed any interest. Only now I know you weren't really interested.
Well, Mac, I'm gonna deliver a harsh truth. You do not have a good penis.
I know.
I have plenty of options. Mostly guys, but some women too. I could set up a booty call in 5 minutes. Do you want to tag along?
I do, I said. I really do. She was right. It literally took 5 minutes for her to set up a date with a woman who was interested in unnaturally wicked carnality.
She'll be here in 20,
Millie told me. Wow, you're efficient.
I'm a hot woman. This was not a big challenge.
How are we going to do this?
When she gets here, I'm going to loosen her up with a couple of drinks. You're going to hide in the closet. I'll bring her into the bedroom and you can watch through the gap and whack off or whatever it is you do. After I knock her out, you'll help me carry her to the basement.
She paused, the look on her face scathing.
But you're helping me get rid of the body afterward. You don't get to participate in all the fun and then skip out on cleanup.
Fine, I smiled. I love this idea. 30 minutes later, Millie came into the bedroom with a heavily tattooed girl whose hair was long, wavy, and purple. They kissed. My stomach churned at the sight. Disfiguring your skin with ink was vile. Spitting in the face of God by changing the color he'd chosen for your hair was vile. And 2 women expressing their sexuality together went beyond vile. It was absolutely disgusting. Disgusting was worse than vile, right? They sprawled on the bed, kissing and groping for way too long. I peeked around the door. When was Millie going to get to the bloodshed? The girl looked toward the closet.
Is someone in there?
Millie slammed her hand over the girl's mouth.
I glared at the girl, Taylor, whose green eyes stared back at me in confusion and fear. My pussy was wet and achy. I wanted her badly, and it kind of excited me that Mac was watching. I'd never had sex or taken a human life with somebody watching. You bite my hand, it'll be the last thing you ever do, I whispered forcefully into her ear. I couldn't stop myself from rubbing against her leg. God, I was turned on. Too turned on. I wasn't sure I could keep myself from hurting her, and I didn't want to make a mess on my bed. At least not that kind of mess. I needed to skip the sex and move to the torture. I punched Taylor in the face, knocking her out. It usually took a few punches or some chloroform, so I was pleased with myself. Mac emerged from the closet. He didn't seem to be hard, probably because his abominable little dick didn't put a noticeable bulge in his pants. "Carry her downstairs to the basement workroom," I said. "Use the handcuffs on the workbench to restrain her wrists and ankles. I'll be down in a few minutes."
What are you doing in the meantime?
"What do you think I'm going to do?"
I have no idea.
"Use your imagination. Hurry before she wakes up."
Fine.
Mac picked up my almost lover and carried her out of the room. I stared at the departing figures and wondered if I'd lost my damn mind doing this with a partner. Could I trust him? Pushing the thought aside, I grabbed my vibrator from the other nightstand drawer and went into the bathroom. Seconds later, there was screaming, but not the painful kind. I walked down the basement stairs. Taylor was bound on the floor, still unconscious, while Mac paced anxiously. I was glad he'd waited for me. I'd half expected to enter my workroom and find Taylor's headless corpse, which really would have pissed me off. With Mac's help, I removed her dress and panties, and then we hauled the limp body toward the throne. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I've got a throne in my basement. It's wonderful. When we sit her on this, she's going to wake up screaming bloody murder and try to get away, I explained. I need you to restrain her while I get her locked in. Mac nodded. We lifted Taylor into a standing position, then I cheerfully shoved her body onto the throne. As she landed on the spiked seat, did I mention it had a spiked seat? Her eyes flew open and anguished screams tore from her throat. "Grab her shoulders," I demanded. "Don't let her get up." Mac did as he was told while I fastened iron clamps around Taylor's neck, chest, and shins. As her weight settled evenly onto the half-inch spikes, the sharp metal ground into her tender flesh, and cherry red drops of blood dripped onto the cement and the wood piled beneath the iron chair. Flipping a switch, the industrial vent above the chair turned on. I doused the wood in lighter fluid and tossed a lit match. The logs immediately caught fire. For our convenience, I slapped a piece of duct tape over her mouth.
What is all this?
Mac asked, flustered.
I thought we were going to kill her.
Oh, we are, but we have to get all the fun and excitement out of it we can, Mac. Taylor was squirming uncomfortably. It's all about the torture. My fingers found their way between my legs, and I came within seconds. The way Mac looked at me, I wondered if he'd ever even seen a woman orgasm in real life. He struck me as more of a love 'em and leave 'em, frustrated and unsatisfied, while they secretly wished for him to go far away so they could use their vibrator in peace, kind of guy. I pointed to the seat of the throne, which had turned an orange hue from the heat. Pretty cool, huh? Mac shrugged. A couple minutes later, I sniffed the air, which was redolent with the aroma of freshly grilled human skin. Ah, better than the finest perfume. As Taylor burned, I roughly yanked out clumps of purple hair and threw them into the fire. When I got tired of that, I unclamped the restraints and lifted her from the chair. The ripping sound her skin made as I pulled her into a standing position was grotesque, as were the layers of skin still cooking on the spiked seat. The backs of her legs and buttocks were a reddened, slimy, blistered, leaking mess. I tossed her onto the pad I'd placed on the floor, stained with the blood of dozens of victims. Her body landed with a thud. Her agonized groan was music to my ears. I studied her, trying to decide what method of torture best suited my needs. My gaze focused on her backside. Despite the missing layers of skin, her ass was still lush as fuck. I shed my slashed and bloodied black mini dress as I made my way to the supply cabinet. After a little finagling, I finally slid the strap-on dildo over my pelvis. It gently grazed against my swollen clit. Without giving Mac a second thought, I rolled Taylor onto her stomach and fucked her mangled ass, my pent-up desires causing my aggressions to take hold. God, she felt good. As I thrust into her, I felt something igniting inside me. It built and built until the ultimate explosion sent stars careening across my vision. Pulling out, I flopped beside her on the mat, struggling to catch my breath. 10 minutes later, happy and re-energized, I sat Taylor up and leaned her against the wall. She moaned as her skinless bottom dragged across the mat. I put the strap-on back inside the cabinet and pulled out a contraption I'd just purchased. I couldn't wait to try it. It was basically a large, centrally located golden hoop attached to 4 equally spaced nylon cords. At the end of each cord were softball-sized golden hoops. Those 4 hoops were made like septum piercing rings. You opened the top clicker piece, pushed them through the skin, then clasped them shut again. And that's exactly what I did. I pushed a hoop through one side of Taylor's breast and out the other side, locked it, and repeated the steps on her other breast. Removing the ankle cuffs, I placed the soles of her feet flat on the floor and pushed her knees toward her chest. Then, I did the same thing to her ankles. A hoop stabbed just above the ankle bone, came out the other side, and the lock popped into place at the back of her leg. A process I repeated on the opposite ankle. It was fun. She looked so beautiful sitting there huddled on the floor, blood running in heavy rivulets from the fresh piercings, completely unable to straighten her legs. If she did, she'd pull those pretty golden hoops right through the front of her breasts, tearing through her nipples and leaving gaping, bloody slit wounds in both tits. Realizing her predicament, large tears ran down her cheeks, and her breaths came in ragged gasps. That shit had zero effect on me. Taylor was nothing more than a piece of meat. I turned on some catchy music, Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry, and went to work with one of my favorite devices, the Pear of Anguish. In its base position, its shape resembled a pear, a wide bottom that gradually narrowed. The metal at the top was divided into 4 petal-shaped segments that opened when the lever at the opposite end was turned. I inserted the closed petals into Taylor's pussy and cranked the lever. My excitement beyond all rational thought. I cranked harder and faster. At first, she seemed ambivalent, but as the metal petals expanded more and more, tearing through her vaginal walls and cervix, destroying her fallopian tubes and ovaries, annihilating her uterus, she lost consciousness. I pulled the instrument out without deflating it first. Chunks of bloody pink pussy flesh clung to the petals. Figuring she'd want a cigarette after such a satisfying experience, I sure as hell did. I grabbed my scalpel and made a deep incision over her jaw, exposing the molars at the back of her mouth. Tucking a lit Marlboro between them, I also lit one for myself. We smoked them together as ashes fell upon her pale, waxy skin. I checked her pulse. It was thready and weak, but still there. She was alive, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do for the big finish. Dragging her tiny frame out of my basement and into a clearing behind my house, which caused the golden hoops to rip out the Achilles tendons in both her legs, I tied her to a stake, surrounded by fresh-cut firewood. Once I had the flames burning brightly, I relaxed in the hammock I'd placed there strictly for bodies burning alive viewing purposes. Most likely, Taylor would die from smoke inhalation before she felt the fire licking her skin, which was a real shame. Burning was an utterly agonizing death, and one I enjoyed watching. I got lucky. Taylor was conscious throughout the entire process, even when her skin's dermis cracked open and melted fat poured from the crevices, even when her eyeballs exploded within their sockets from the heat, even as the heat scorched her lungs and made breathing painful and impossible. She remained conscious until the shrinkage of the skin around her neck became severe enough to strangle her to death. It was beautiful. I lounged in my hammock long after she'd died, watching chunks of her skin fall into the flames. When the fire was nothing more than coals, I went back inside the house, satisfied by a job well done. Mac was standing there, face pale, mouth agape. He said.
What the fuck? Seriously, what the fuck? What the fuck? Killing filthy whores was a satisfying experience. Slash the throat, watch the life force drain from their body, and move on. What Millie had done was it was messed up. It was depraved. The woman was batshit crazy.
What's wrong?
Millie asked.
Are you upset that I finished the job without you? Nobody told you to stay in the house.
You.
Yes, Mac? Use your words.
That was not the behavior of a mentally healthy person.
What exactly did you think I was going to do?
Kill her! Stab! 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 I mimed this action. I didn't know that you'd, burn up her ass or, use that hoop thing. You played with yourself right there in front of me and her.
You don't get sexual satisfaction from this sort of thing?
Of course not. That's deviant. You're deviant. You're the biggest deviant I've ever met. My God, how do you sleep at night? How do you look in the mirror and not smash it with your fist because the sight of yourself fills you with a deep and intense self-loathing? You're a sick woman, Millie. You need help.
The message I'm getting is that our collaboration didn't work out for you.
There was no collaboration. That was all you. I don't think you even remembered I was there most of the time.
Okay, that's true,
Millie admitted.
I got caught up in the experience, but you could have helped. You could have fingered her while she was burning.
That's disgusting. This is why I hate women. This right here is exactly why I think all women should die.
You still have to help me clean up.
I'm not cleaning up a goddamn thing, you perverted, foul, wretched. Millie took a step toward me.
Are we going to have to fight this out?
Maybe we are, I said. Do you really think you can beat me? As it turned out, she could. To be fair, after she kicked me in the balls, I didn't really stand a chance. I've been kicked in the balls before, but never so hard that one of them popped. From that point forward, I couldn't fight. The throne was every bit as unpleasant as it looked when the purple-haired girl was on it, but not as unpleasant as the flaying that followed. And when Millie got started on the genital mutilation, I longed for the time when a popped testicle was the worst of my problems. I begged her to kill me. She promised she would, but only after we wrote our story, as a souvenir of the evening we spent together. She wanted the honest, uncensored truth so that maybe she could fulfill her dream of being a published author.
Make your half entertaining as fuck,
she warned me.
Or I'll put very sharp, spiky things up your blistered ass.
I've done my best. It's taken a while because I only have one finger left to type with. But I think we've reached the end of this saga. I'm hoping she'll finally put me out of my misery. Good night, whoever is reading this, and thank you for your attention.
Good job, Mac. But I'm still putting sharp and spiky things up your ass.
And so ends our little love story. One stitched with entrails and wrapped in the scent of scorched flesh. Mac and Millie have had their dance, a duet of deviance, a symphony of steel and screams. What began as a catfishing game between predators ends as a masterclass in mutual mutilation. But this was only the beginning. You see, Spectral Margins is where the boundaries blur, but beyond the margins, that's where they break. This tale is part of an upcoming audiobook release titled Embracing the Profane. Once an operating room registered nurse, Bridgett Nelson so enjoyed playing with human organs, she decided to turn her macabre interest into a horror writing career, featuring a collection of 15 sinisterly sinful stories. This book will be available in both audio and print form 1 week from today, April 22nd. If tonight's tale stirred something in you, something dark, something curious, you'll find a home in that unholy archive, a place where the screams echo longer and the shadows breathe just a little heavier. Beyond the Margins launches this week, and Mac and Millie will be there, waiting, ready to bleed again for your pleasure. Find it wherever you seek your nightmares. Until next time, I'm Lucius Voss, saying keep your lights low. I'll be watching. Good night.